And Dr. Perry, talk to me about the plans for graduation, because they're going to look a little different this year.
We do. One of the things that we wanted to do for our seniors is to provide them with that graduation experience. I think that is a milestone in a lot of young people's lives. It's also an important time for family and friends to kind of celebrate that. And so we wanted to make sure that we had a graduation ceremony for our students. Earlier on in the year, we had hoped that the virus would be a little bit less severe than it was earlier in the summer. That's why we set it so late in the school year. And unfortunately, probably the numbers have risen since we ended school, but we still think that we can provide this graduation experience to our students and it be a meaningful process, but still be a safe one. So we have worked with the high school administration, we've worked with students, we've worked with a wide number of folks to make sure that the ceremony does recognize and celebrate their accomplishment, but at the same point in time, provides those critical safety elements. We are going to do it on the football field, which enables us, of course, to spread the students out on the field. It also enables us to place parents and relatives in the stands, which gives us more room to spread out than we would have in the gym or in the expo center where we normally have the program. So we are giving out 4 tickets to each student. We certainly understand that there would be more individuals than that would want to come, but we do need to make sure that we're able to, provide that social distancing. We would have about 3,000 or more people that we could put in the stands on a regular night. We have roughly about 300 students who will be graduating, so we'll put almost a third of the capacity of the stands, or allow about a third of the capacity of individuals to come into the stands. So we think we can provide that social distancing to make it safe for those individuals watching. In addition, we're going to attempt to live stream the ceremony, and we'll also take a video of the ceremony so that students can get that later if they are interested.
And just so I'm clear on some of the specific numbers, there are 300 students both at East and West, is that right? Or is 300 total?
No, it would be roughly around 300. Some years we have a little bit more than that, some we have a little bit less than that, but we have about 3,000 students altogether in both of our high schools, so roughly about 300 apiece.
Okay, so it's 300 apiece, so 1,200 or so people in the stadium for each event.
Correct. Now those are held, of course, on 2 separate nights. We're going Thursday night and Friday night at 8 o'clock. And I also think it's important to understand that we don't have a lot of time after this particular one, so we're going to go rain or shine. The only thing that would prevent us from having the ceremony would be lightning, which we would be prevented, of course, just for safety reasons. But we're encouraging spectators to bring umbrellas, bring rain gear, because I do think Thursday night looks a little like there might be some inclement weather. Friday, I think we're going to be okay, but in the summer here in Eastern Tennessee, you never really know about those pop-up thunderstorms. And so if it's just a little bit of rain, we'll probably go ahead and go with the ceremony, again, simply because we don't have a lot of time for the start of school. And so we'd have to do it now so that we can get kids back to college and back to their jobs and whatever they're going to do, after high school.
And as part of the precautions you're taking, are you requiring masks for people going to the graduation?
Of course, we are certainly encouraging those individuals to wear masks. We are not requiring masks at this particular one because it is outside. We do think that we have got the students, when they sit on the field, there's actually going to be separation between the students there. There'll be separation when they walk out on the field. So in this particular ceremony, we are not requiring it. Now, when we come back to school, we are requiring masks, but at this particular one, just simply because it is outside, we have the ability to separate students. We would not require those. Now, many of the staff members will be wearing those, and we'll make sure that if anybody wants to wear those, of course, we strongly encourage.
And sir, I'm sure you understand, I've got some kind of tough questions. Hamblen County had another record high new cases yesterday. Are you concerned at all about having such a large event?
Cole, I'm concerned every day that we make decisions. I think that any superintendent who is not concerned about making decisions doesn't really realize the magnitude of what we're dealing with. And so every day, every decision that I make has a series of consequences with it. Now, I do think the thing that I think is important to understand, this is a voluntary activity. Students will receive their diploma regardless if they participate in the ceremony or not. So I think that there is a risk factor associated with everything that we do. There's a risk factor associated when we go to the grocery store, when we go to Walmart, when we go to a medical facility for treatment. So there will be risk. We've talked to students and we've talked to parents about that. And I think that everybody fully understands that this is strictly voluntary. There is no need for you to attend to get your diploma. You can pick that up at any time next week. So it does have a concern to us. We worry about a large number of things, but we think that this is a manageable risk. It is a situation to where we can get individuals separated in the stands, and that also we can keep the students separated on the field.
There's a new model from Georgia Tech that talks on a county-by-county basis about your risk of exposure to coronavirus in certain sizes of groups. In Hamblen County, because of the number of cases in Hamblen County, it says that the risk for people, let me make sure I get this right. The risk that people in groups of 50 or more in Hamblen County are exposed to COVID-19 is 90%. If you increase that to 1,000 people, which you're expecting more than that, it's more than 99% probability that there will be someone in attendance with COVID-19. I guess, how do you expect the graduation to be safe?
Cole, as I've stated in the past, I think that every single time that we have an event, we're going to have approximately 7,000, 8,000 students come to school the following week. I think most school districts in the eastern part of Tennessee are going to be opening up in the next 2 weeks, and that probability exists there too. Right now, I think
Which, sir, doesn't that beg the question that maybe schools shouldn't be opening?
Well, I think that is certainly is a question that we ask. I think certainly that is something that everybody needs to consider. But if you look at the statement that the American Association of Pediatricians put out, that particular statement said, and I do think this is accurate, is that there are a number of risk factors associated with opening school. There's no doubt about that. Anytime you bring that number of students back together, there's going to be some risk factors. Also, what that report said is that there are a number of factors that are perhaps equally concerning. For every day that we stay out of school, there's some problems. There's not a single day goes by in this district where we do not make a report to Children's Services about a student that is neglected, that is abused physically, sexually, from someone in the home or a relative. Many of our students will go hungry if they're not in school. Many of our students are going to receive counseling and other related services that they do not get the entire summer. So I think when you begin to look at this, not only is the academic factor at stake, there's also those situations where a student, anyone who simply thinks a student is safe at home, really doesn't understand the true nature of how young people are living in this world right now. There are risk factors every single day that a child is out of school. There's academic regression, there's social regression, there's also physical regression. And so there are a number of issues that are associated with staying home. And just like folks in the hospital, individuals in healthcare, individuals in the service retail, there is a acceptable risk factor and there's a non-acceptable risk factor. Most students are going to be okay in this situation unless you have compromised health conditions. I think what we're the most concerned about is that individuals who would have medically compromised positions and individuals who are already struggling, those individuals need to be protected, and we need to make sure that we focus on those individuals. But now again, students have the option of going online. There is no penalty, there's no consequences for going online. And so students have that option, and so parents can make that particular decision about what to do. But I think, Cole, the thing that I'm probably most concerned about with this is that if schools don't open, a lot of times we are the primary driving factor behind a lot of local economies. If we're not in school, people can't go to work. Medical providers can't go to work. Retail providers can't go to work. We have a very strong local industry presence in Morristown. When we're not in school, many of those workers are unable to go to work because we provide the daycare. If we are not in school, those individuals don't work. So when you go to the hospital, they don't have the nurses, they don't have the physicians there because they don't have access to daycare. When you go to some of the retail stores to buy your food or groceries or whatever, they're not going to be stocked because individuals are not there. Industries don't end up paying the taxes because they're not producing goods. And so then that reduces the amount of sales tax that we have, the amount of property tax that we have. And then that has an impact on our ability to fund schools, to provide law enforcement, to provide those critical services. And so I think if individuals don't understand that this is a highly complicated issue, then I think that there's going to be severe consequences that all of us will face because we didn't think through the second, third step of this.
And I think you're absolutely right. Kind of the ladder effect, if you will, that every little building block goes into it, with schools being one of the base building blocks for building up the entire economy. I want to ask you one more question about reopening schools before we move. I've got a couple more on graduation. What would be the level at which you would say, you know what, we need to move all online, or would there be that level?
Certainly there's going to be triggers that would initiate a closing of a school, that would initiate the closing of the entire school district. And a lot of individuals have asked, is that particular point specifically quantifiable? And it's not. We had some situations last year when we had the flu in which we would have 60-70% of the students out with the flu. At another school just 3 miles down the road, we had nobody out. And so there's a lot of factors associated with this. And I think also one of the things that we need to truly understand, and I think this is the thing that a lot of individuals, they don't take the time to understand the data. They don't understand the complexity of the data. And if you look, one of the things that you have to do first, because you mentioned some numbers earlier on, that Morristown was a very hot spot, which I think that it is. But if you look at the number of cases that we have actually tested, and then look at the number of positive cases, it is pretty much in line with some other parts of the state. The thing that we have done is,
well, with respect, sir, it's actually almost, the positivity rate in Hamblen County is almost double what it is in Knox County right now.
And I don't know about that. I think that I'd have to look at those particular numbers, but I think.
Sir, it's 17.3%, the 7-day positivity rate in Hamblen County, and in Knox County, it's 9.4%.
Cole, I've not looked at Knox County, so I don't know that 100%, but I do know that I've looked at some other numbers, and we have tested a great deal more. I think in the last little bit, we have targeted specific groups that we would feel would be infected, and not just did the general, if you want to just come out and see if you're infected, come out and get tested. I think some of our efforts have been more specifically targeted to certain groups, so that there would probably be a tendency to have a little bit higher rates. But regardless, I think there's no doubt you can look at some of the other data points, and we are a situation where there's a large number of people infected. I don't think that anybody is dismissing that. I think certainly that is something that we look at every single day, and it is concerning to us. At the same point in time, as I said before, if we take no particular risk at all, then there's going to be heavy consequences for that, and what that would potentially result in. It's just like this year. We had to ask for level funding from our county. We got very little additional money from the state because their sales tax was down. And so what ended up happening, I had routine operational expenses in excess of about $1.34 million. So with that, we had an extra $300,000 in state revenue and in different pieces to take care of that. So that particular gap of $900,000, that had to be consumed by loss of services, by inability to us to adequately compensate our staff members. And so, again, if we're not in school, if we're not doing what we need to do, then there's going to be consequences for that. And I think right now we have about 2,200 students that's going online out of our 10,000. The other 7,000 and some students are coming to school because parents want that. Parents feel like that's what they need to do. They feel that it is a safe environment. They've looked at our plan, and they feel like they want to send their child to school. So
and
with
oftentimes
that,
they need that too.
The part, and they do. There's a lot of folks who desperately need us to be in school. And again, there are some of the individuals that's providing that service. I got an email from a nurse in one of the hospitals, and says she's a single mom, raising 3 kids. Daycare right now is absolutely killing her with the cost, that she can handle it during the summer, but if she's got to pay those costs during the rest of the school year, she just can't make it. And so it's a situation to where she needs us to open so that she can provide for her family and pay the bills. And so there's just I think a lot of folks, and I think that too, with some newspaper, and then also with some of the television, you guys have such a limited time to talk about a highly complicated issue. this segment's going to be less than 2 minutes. And everything that you and I have talked about could not be encapsulated in 2 minutes. You've got to take the most important pieces and you've got to discern and kind of analyze all of that to kind of determine what's the most important. Some folks attempt to sensationalize that and to make it news when it's not really news. And some individuals, really try to make that balanced kind of report. And I hope that's the case in this particular situation. Because if not, then future conversations you and I won't have. But it's a situation.
Well, and sir, I think we both agree that this topic is newsworthy. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Having these big events when the 1 in 5 people in the county are testing positive, I think is worth talking about, don't you? I should say 1 in 5 people who test in the county are positive.
Okay, yeah, because that first statement you said is not accurate. And I think, you need to be careful with that particular piece.
Of course, but don't you think it's worth talking about this given the high rate of positivity in Hamblen County?
Cole, I've got to go to principals meeting here in about 5 minutes, but now I will tell you, if you started this whole conversation trying to make that particular statement, I'm not sure that you and I are going to have a good relationship in the future, but because I think
why is that, sir?
There is some concerns, and I've expressed that concern. We've got certain things in place to mitigate some of those concerns. It's not an absolute, but we do have some things in place to help with that. And it being a volunteer program, I think, is a situation which parents in their own condition can make that decision.
And I want to respect your time because I know I've taken up some of it this morning as you're starting on a very busy day. One last question for you about Prom, which is also scheduled for this weekend. Why have that event in the midst of all of this coronavirus?
I think one of the things that we decided to do with that decision was made a long time ago. And we could, of course, cancel that. This is not the traditional prom that perhaps most individuals would go to. And we have talked to our families and we've talked to our students about that. This is not going to be the best prom ever. This is not going to be a situation where you would have that long, drawn-out experience. This is basically an opportunity for students in small groups to go ahead and use the dresses, the tux that they may have purchased back in the spring. They'd have the opportunity to wear those. They would have the opportunity to go out and eat. In a lot of those situations, there would be a mask requirement in those kind of places. And then students would be able to come in and basically they're going to be able to get their picture taken. They'll be able to see some friends that they would typically have not been able to see since we were out of school. And then it is going to be a short period of time that they will be there. So again, I think that the voluntary nature of it, I think that we have certain things in place with temperatures, taking temperatures and those kind of things that would mitigate some of those particular factors. But we'll make it real clear to everyone is that there are some risks associated with that. And because if we had more time, I think that a lot of people are simply focused on the number of positive cases. If you talk to most medical professionals, they are less concerned about the number of cases and they're more concerned about the clinically significant cases. Is that which number of those cases led to a serious deterioration of the health and which are likely to have a bad recovery mode, resulting in death or permanent damage. The vast number that increases, the people over 65, those with some immune deficiency. Most of our students are not in those particular categories, and I would suspect that any of our student who is in that category wouldn't be participating in these kind of particular activities.
And quickly, but isn't the risk that they contract the virus and then bring it home to their parents or grandparents?
That is a decision, and I think that is a personal thing that every particular family needs to consider. So if you would look at some of the activities, I think that is currently going on within the county, are students remaining isolated? Are they any safer at Walmart than they would be at the prom? Are they any safer going to the grocery store? At least in our activities, we have temperature checks. We have certain things in place to limit the number of people. I think we have more controlled factors in the activities that we are providing. Now, there is no doubt that, as I've said numerous times, there are risk factors associated with this. And parents, students need to carefully consider their particular situation, and they need to determine if this is the right situation for them.
Understood. Sir, I've taken up about 25 minutes of your time this morning. I appreciate you joining me and answering some tough questions.
Oh, that's what we do every single day, my friend. So, you take care, and I wish you the best, buddy.
You too. Good luck to you. Have a good day.
See you.
Mm-hmm.